Welcome to one more episode of the Connect Dots podcasts, the show that explores community management within sports, fitness, and wellness brands. My name is Francisco, and for today's episode, we have the honor to have as our guests Danny Barnes, the membership manager at Rapha, the renowned cycling clothing brand. In this episode, we will delve into Danny's role at Rapha, the importance of community for the brand, and the valuable lessons learned. First things first, welcome, Danny. Thank you so much for accepting the challenge and to join us for the third episode of the Connect Dots podcasts. And to kick things off, could you tell us a little bit more about you, and obviously a little bit more about your role as the membership manager at Rapha?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. It's great to connect the dots. It's great to be here and talk about this. I think maybe before I get on to me, if you don't mind, maybe if I just give a bit of a story of Rapha.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to understand where it's come from and where community fits within the brand. I'll try and keep it. You might have to stop me. I'll try and keep this as concise as possible. But Rapha's been going for 20 years, or be 20 years, coming up 20 years now. And it was born out of a frustration. It was born out of a frustration of the founder, Simon Mottram. He is passionate about cycling, passionate about the sport. Grew up as a kid. That was his sport. That was his thing. He watched every race, got completely in love with the sport, the stories, the history, the drama of it, the heroes, and obviously naturally then, as he grew up, he then got into cycling and riding a bike. And the thing that really struck him, I mean, Simon is a very well-presented human being. He likes good design. He's got a great attention to detail. And I think the thing that was sort of quite striking is that, you buy a bike and the bike was this beautiful machine, very, amazingly designed machine. But back then, you effectively were dressing up like a bit of a clown. There was no good clothing to wear to ride a bike. It was all brightly colored, mismatched, really horrible brand logos over it. It didn't fit very well, and the materials were really for other activities and sports. They weren't designed for cycling. So none of it really worked. And he tried to find something that would work, that would fit with his sort of aesthetics of all of this. And there was nothing out there. So he was like, okay, well, I'll do this myself. So he created a few designs, created a sort of initial collection, put that together, and then went out to get investment so that he could then create the first run and have an exhibit, launch his product. And interestingly, actually, this is an interesting story on sort of perseverance and really believing in yourself, because he went in front of investors and they sort of laughed it off, like, you're not going to make money out of this. It's cycling. It's a niche. It's just this niche thing for weirdos.
If I'm not wrong, like the launch of the brand was with an event, right? Like the Kings of Pain, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it was again. This is it's the Simon's way of doing things, which is finding your own road. It's not just a launch of a product, launch of a brand. He launched it as an exhibition, with a photography exhibition celebrating the story and the history of the sport, and the heroes of the sport, and his new collection was within that. So where community fits into this is, from day one, Simon always he brought his wider cycling group into this. So They would go out riding on a Wednesdays and Fridays and weekends. He'd bring the product along. He'd get his friends to try the product, and get direct feedback. And as he got the investment, he eventually, he got that investment. He launched the products, was able to hire a few staff, and then Wednesdays became a day where it was, we go out for a ride on a Wednesday. Staff and customers, we try the product, we test the product, and that's really where, from day one, community was there from day one. Like Simon brought in his friends, and the first few customers that bought from him, they became part of the, him going out riding on a Wednesday or riding on a weekend. So it was, community was always there from day one. It was always part of the DNA of the brand at the very, very beginning.
And it's funny to see that not only, but like for the last 3 to 4 years, we have been talking more and more about like community-driven brands, community-led brands. But you are telling a story that was 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
So somehow you were from day one leading the pack, and or leading the way, and somehow just like you said, that is something that is part of Simon's DNA, or Simon's way to do things. It's just to follow their own road, or to build their own road, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's always been there since day one, and it's still there today. It's that same ethos, culture, community, people. It's all at the very, very heart of the brand, and it's the thing that everybody is, very aware of every day.
For how long have you been working for the brand?
So 13 years. I've been.
Wow.
I started actually not working directly. So I worked for a distribution company in Australia. So we imported brands from UK and Europe into Australia, and we got the rights to retail Rapha 13 years ago. And then Rapha eventually wanted to set up their own presence. So our stores, we call them clubhouses because they're more than just stores. They're experience hubs, if you like. So Rapha was setting up this clubhouse in Sydney, and asked whether I wanted to come and join and do that. So that's when I made the jump over.
Now, talking about your role as a membership manager, what can you tell us more about that role? What are your main tasks? What are your main goals? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so as Rapha, as I say, the community was always there at the start, and the way in which the sort of the club has developed is, it started as a sort of underground program. It was something that you got added to this program called Imperial Works. Imperial Works was the name of our original office, which is a piano factory, which was called Imperial Works. So you got added to this club, which gave you, you got a little card. That card got you free coffee when you went to one of our stores. Back then, we only had Sydney, LA, Sydney, San Francisco, and London. We only had those three originally. And then as we grew, more and more came. And so it started as this sort of club that you didn't really know how you got into, but a lot of it was based on, our best customers, really. And then it sort of evolved there, and we saw this as it's a great place to engage and bring people together. So that's why we created the RCC, which is what it's called today now, which is a paid for membership program. But the money you pay really goes back into the program and building the program and investing back into the program. So yeah, the origins of it were, this sort of exclusive club, if you like. And over the years, we've been moving it towards much more of an open, um, inclusive club. So I say, very early days, it was invite only, and a lot of that was driven by us not really knowing, how's this going to go, how's it going to work. So perhaps a little bit of sort of testing, seeing, iterating, changing, and then moving it as you go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so my role really now is overseeing that whole program and overseeing, the community, the customer. It's all within the RCC, and it's kind of, think of it as a journey, and the journey is you discover Rapha, you maybe buy a few products, you understand the brand, you become connected to the brand, you want to ride more, you want to do more, then this is the place you come to basically do more and ride more with us. We have a group of we have rides going around, hundreds of rides going on every week around the world. And it's a great place for people to come together. And if you don't ride with other people, then this is the place that you can come and do that.
But for example, if the challenge would be just to, for example, to summarize one of your main tasks, especially like looking into the business side of it, like obviously in general, you take care of a group of passionate cyclists that love the brand, love the vision, love the purpose of the brand. But just if you had to sum up like the 5 main tasks that you have, like in a more business side of your role, what would be your main tasks?
So I can bring it down to 2 things. There's 2 things that I balance every day, and that drive everything that we do, as looking at as a sort of membership, and it's business success and customer success. So everything is balanced about delivering on those 2 pillars, with a real focus on customer success first, because customer success will create the business success. You can't really create the business success first. So by that, I mean, it's just being over all of the details. What experience is that customer having? How are they able to connect with what we do? Which is ultimately, it's getting someone on a bike. That's the ultimate goal, is anybody who joins the club, we want to get them on a bike and ride with us, with other people, with the community.
Yeah, but like in the end, obviously that's the ultimate goal, but there are, or that might be mini tasks or mini steps that are previous to that ultimate goal, that and these steps are like a little bit beyond just putting the person riding a bike. For example, you talked about the journey of the person gets to know the brand, starts to buy some products, understands the brand, somehow feels that they can belong to the brand, and then maybe they will join the RCC, so the Rapha Cycling Club. But somehow, and just touching again on those, like customer success on one side, business success on the other side, I would say that your role goes beyond just like organizing events, or just letting people know that, okay, if you want to ride the bicycle, you can do it like the Rapha way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it only actually works if the whole business is behind it and the whole brand is behind it. It will only ever work if it is that way, which it is. And it's not just the RCC manager managing the RCC, it's the whole company. Everybody's involved in different levels at different points. And success is really not sort of going, this is my thing and I own this. This is all of our thing and we all own it. And giving people autonomy to do things and try things. And really the role that we have as in a central office, because we've got our office in London, office in Bentonville in the US, and then we've got all of our locations and staff around the world. But success is, enabling the autonomy within those regions.
And before going to the second question, actually, I have one extra question, which is like inside the brand, and again, focusing a little bit more on the business side, you as a membership manager, knowing that the ultimate goal is just like for the people to ride a bike, what are the departments with which you can which you interact the most? I would say maybe like support, product, marketing. What are the departments with whom you interact the most?
You broke up a bit there, but I think it was you said about departments that I work with the most.
Yeah, like the question is like, obviously you interact with customers, so I believe that you interact with customers. But looking at the business, what are the main departments with whom you interact the most? I would say like support, product, marketing. Membership manager, we can see you as like the middleman between the customer and the business side of it. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'd say most closely linked with marketing, for sure. Then, and marketing is centrally, but also regionally. We have regional marketeers, regional marketing teams. So I'd say marketing, and then it's the stores, then it's the clubhouses, because that's where the activity is really going on. So we have our general managers, regional managers, so very much marketing and clubhouse orientated. But then there's the product line and the product arm. So again, very heavy with the product team, CRM team, e-commerce. But I mean, really, this community, it works with every department. You're running a little business within a business, and it's kind of almost like a closed business. You kind of act a bit like a CEO in a way. You're trying to sort of balance the whole thing.
Membership manager, also known as the juggler, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, jack of all trades or a juggler. Yeah.
So now looking a little bit more into detail to the Rapha Cycling Club, can you tell us a little bit more about some, I don't know, like unique strategies or initiatives that you have or that you implement to kind of strengthen the bonds between Rapha as a brand and the customers or the community members?
So I think the most powerful one, the one that drives, the most powerful one, the one that drives the most results is, and it sounds really cheesy, is aiming to create friendships and memories. And I know it sounds really cheesy, really corny, but if you're trying to aim for that, and that's the goal, is to create friendships and memories, then everything else will follow. But details of what that means is creating memorable events, creating memorable rides, creating we do like short weekend rides called escapes. We do longer weekend travel trips called summits. So it's really just trying to layer on so that every day you're doing this thing. What are you trying to create? You're just trying to create friendships and memories for people. I think quite often you forget that part. You'll forget that's the outcome. You're just trying to get through the event and deliver the event and make sure everyone's had a good time. So I think it's just attention to detail and just looking at everybody. And if somebody's sat on their own, not talking to someone, introduce them to somebody else, and just make sure that those connections are strong for everybody. And that comes a lot with onboarding as well, making sure you onboard people correctly and you introduce them to other people and you make them feel welcome. So yeah, I think that's
In,
probably
in
a bit vague. But
I know that like the RCC is so you have your like in-house app, so that's where people get most of like the content that you that you publish or that you share. That's where people can just connect with other community members. That's where people can get access to the events calendar. But like, is there anything more than just like the app, or like the headquarters of the Rapha Cycling Club is the app? So what I mean by this, are you using other channels and platforms, or you only have the RCC app and the Instagram page that now I remember that you have?
yeah, yeah. So we built our own app because again, when we started on this road, there was nothing out there. There was nothing out there that existed. There was Strava, and we did start with Strava, and Strava is a very powerful, useful tool. But it didn't do all the things that we wanted it to do, and there was nothing out there that existed. So um, one of our members actually created was creating an app. They what part of one of their businesses was app development, so they actually created this app,
Wow.
and uh, they created it for us, and then that became our app. So we worked with our community to create the products, and it's just developed and developed over time. So we do drive as much engagement, and everything's on the app. That's where you go if you want to find out anything. You go to the app, and that's where you can chat to other people, you can follow other people, you can join rides, you can see what's coming up. There's a news feed where you get information about what products are just landed. And then also in the regions, we do use what generally is the local tool. So it might be WhatsApp, it might be Telegram. So we do have a local chat group, which is just so that people, it's an environment where people are already at.
Okay, makes sense.
So they're the main channel.
Okay. Now, you were talking about engagement, and I can use that just to connect to one of the questions I had, which is like, we know that metrics and more analytics play a crucial role in assessing the success, the sustainability of a community, and obviously the success of community management efforts. Can you tell us a little bit more about, like, what are the key performance indicators, the KPIs, that Rapha uses to track the health and growth of the RCC?
Yeah, so a lot of the data we get through the app, and we track the sort of the standard stuff, which is, how many members do we have, how many new members are coming in, what's the retention rate of our membership. Then we break that down by region, by different cohorts, male, female, location, distance from a clubhouse. So we kind of look at the sort of the numbers as kind of one metric. But the important one really is the engagement. How many rides have they joined? How many out of the volume, the total number of members, how many of those members have joined a ride? How many go into the app every week or twice a week? So a lot of it really is weighted towards, again, the goal of getting people to ride their bike. And so the metrics are really, a lot of it is around that engagement, that ride engagement, and growing.
And How many do you have an idea of how many members you have right now? Just like and here I'm not talking about the ones that are like super users, but in general, do you have an idea of how many members do you have right now?
Yeah, so it sort of fluctuates, but it's around the sort of 26,000
Wow.
number. Um, and engagement wise, it sort of varies, a sort of engagement on location. So there's a lot of looking at it as a whole is not always good. Because when you look at the numbers as a whole, it doesn't really give you the picture.
Yeah.
You do have to look quite granular. So some locations have really high engagement, and sort of 70% engagement. Some locations, less, maybe 30%. But then when you break that down and you look at the geographies, you can kind of understand a bit more about what's going on.
And looking to that data, like then you act on that data, like okay, you understand why, for example, the on this specific location the numbers fluctuate a little bit more, and you act on that, or
Yes, yeah. So with our local teams, it's really getting to understand what's going on, what's driving, certain things. And as you know, it's an always evolving thing. There's no stop or start. It's always moving. And we saw, a lot of change post pandemic,
Mhm.
and change in behaviors, and some places where it came back really strong and other places where it didn't come back very strong.
Mm.
And it's really trying to understand why, what's changed in people, and what do we need to change in our program to
Mm.
reflect that. um, One thing for us was definitely seeing that people didn't want to ride in big groups as much,
Okay.
and so it's been reducing the size of groups or doing more events where it's you're on your own, but you're doing a bigger thing with a group of people, but you're kind of riding on your own. So it's just, yeah, it's looking at that data and understanding what's going on. The data alone won't tell you the answer. You've got to
Obviously.
find out what's going on the ground.
Obviously. And knowing that, okay, you have around 25,000 members, and the community comprises like cyclists from different backgrounds, skill levels, and also interests. How does Rapha ensures like inclusivity and somehow make every member feel that are valued on one side and heard on the other side?
Yeah. I think a lot of that actually starts with your people, so our people, with the staff. The inclusivity side is the brand is very really listens to its staff and really supports its staff. And a lot of the gains in inclusivity that we've had have been driven by the staff. And somebody saying, like, we need to make a change here, we need to do this, and the brand has supported them and said, yes, let's do that, let's support you in doing that. So an example is, around the world we've got quite a few staff members that lead different kind of rides. So that might be beginner sessions, rides for new people into so we call them Rapha 101 sessions. um, uh, we've done sort of inclusivity rides for LGBT, and we've done partnering with different clubs. So there's a few of different clubs around the world that sort of more specialize in different groups, and we partner with some of those. But again, it's all driven by the staff. The staff really have driven a lot of that change, and the brand supporting the staff to do that and making it important. So it's, again, that's an always moving, evolving, and growing thing. It's just being aware of it and really driving for that change.
Mm.
But you can't do it on, the brand alone can't do it. It's bringing all the people, the staff together, and the community. People in the community. We have ride leaders. We've got 500 ride leaders globally. So it's supporting, it's ride leader says, I want to do this. It's like, yes, let's do it. Let's give it a go. So I think it's just testing and trying and iterating a lot.
Okay, Danny, last question. And for the last question, I have a challenge for you. So this is something that you're going to be like the first with whom we will try this. And we will call this the Would You Rather challenge. So I will present you two situations, and you just need to choose what are the one that you like the most, and if possible, in a very short way, just explain or tell us why you prefer one situation rather than the other. So for this episode, the question is: would you rather moderate a community of tech enthusiasts who only communicate in Morse code, or a community of foodies who can only express themselves through food emojis? A or B, and why?
B.
Okay, so the foodies who express only using food emojis. Why?
Because that sounds quite fun.
Okay.
I'd like to see that. um, it just sounds creative. It just sounds like that from that you will gain, emojis are emotions, aren't they? And it's all about emotion. Community is all about people and emotion. So that sounds, I think you'd get very clear, from that you'd really understand what's going on in somebody's.
Okay. Now, just picking up on that example, what would be the first emoji that you would use? Just like I'm here, what would be that emoji?
Good question. Probably the one where it's doing
Okay,
that.
thinking. Okay, good. So thank you, Danny, for sharing a little bit more, or sharing a little bit of your expertise and some insights about your role and Rapha as a community-driven and a community-led company today. It was a pleasure just to learn about a little bit more about your role as the membership manager at Rapha, and how important is community to the brand. To our audience, thank you so much for joining us on the third episode of Connect Dots. And as always, stay tuned for more exciting conversations about community management. And remember, keep connecting the dots. Thank you.